Welcome to Astro Hi-Fi. My name is Gabby Turner, and today we're going to be taking a pretty thorough look at Shakira's chart, her transits and progressions, and we're going to see how those match up with what seems to be going on in her life right now, because it seems like she's going through a pretty tough time, and if you haven't heard the news, she is possibly facing jail time for tax fraud in Spain. So she has some sort of upcoming trial regarding that, potentially could face up to 8 years in prison. She's also recently split from her ex, I believe husband, who also I'm pretty sure is the father of her 2 children. And it has come out that he's been having affairs on her and things like that. So there's kind of a lot going on with her right now that is quite difficult, and so I thought it would be interesting just to see how that plays out in an astrological sense. What can we see astrologically that would seem to explain what's going on with her? So I feel in my own process of learning astrology, it's just when you have good evidence of what's going on with someone and you can see how that matches up with planetary symbolism, it really does help you to kind of learn, what types of situations can come up or happen when certain transits or progressions are taking place. So what you see in front of you is Shakira's chart. In this inner wheel here, these are just her natal placements, and on the outside in red, these are transiting planets. So Pluto, for example, right now is transiting in late Capricorn. So all of the red planets are the slower moving planets, and it's showing where their current transits are. Saturn is in Aquarius right now. The green planets that you see, and this green MC and green AC, her ascendant, AC is ascendant, MC is midheaven. This green Mars, all of this, these are her progressions. So if you're not familiar with progressions, it just shows sort of the evolution of a person's natal chart. So our natal chart is always going to express, the basic blueprint of who we are, but our progressions kind of show how those planets move throughout our lifetime in a way that demonstrates our personal evolution, and also these, just like transits to our natal chart, progressions can indicate changes that we're experiencing in life. So where I wanted to start first with Shakira is with what we see in her 10th house. The 10th house is the most public house. It also has to do with our professional life, our career life, our reputation. And she has natally Mars in Capricorn conjunct Capricorn, or conjunct Mercury. Mars and Mercury in Capricorn in the 10th house. With a trine aspect to Jupiter. This is a very strong placement for Mars because it's in the sign of its exaltation, Capricorn. And there's this trine from Jupiter, which really is like revving it up, giving it a lot more power. So I think this is interesting because anything that we see in a person's 10th house or conjunct their midheaven, even if it's slightly on the 9th house side of it, is going to be something that's very well known or like publicly part of this person's public reputation. So one of the things that Mars conjunct Mercury could indicate is, her like quick physical movements, because Mars can be about sort of athleticism, how we use our physical body, and it's conjunct Mercury, which is a very quick moving planet. So, the sort of like quick hip movements that she makes, even her vocalizations, I feel, really fit the quality of these 2 planets together in her 10th house. But I would also like to point out that Mars in the 10th house, I have noticed this on more than one occasion. People with Mars in the 10th are very career driven. There is a lot of ambition and a lot of drive to succeed professionally with these people. So she didn't just luck into her success or just fall into it. This is someone who set out to become successful. And with Mercury here, she probably knew, how to network with other people, how to, find the right people to connect with in order to succeed. But also, it's a very hardworking, ambitious placement. And Mars in Capricorn is someone who does look at the long-term career objective. This is someone who's willing to put in years to get to where they need to get to, if that's what it takes. Whereas Mars in Aries, which is also a strong placement for Mars because it's Mars in its own sign, is really good at getting to a goal very quickly and then having another goal and getting to it very quickly. Mars in Aries is a sprinter, whereas Mars in Capricorn is more of a marathon runner. So if you're worried about Shakira's career, she's in the long-term game with her career. So I wouldn't worry about it too much because this is a placement of someone who can weather storms and still come out of them on the other side and succeed. Mars in Capricorn is more capable of handling difficulty, strife, hardship than a lot of the other, than any of the other Mars placements. But Capricorn in general has that quality of endurance. But yeah, we also have here, the trine to Jupiter, and Jupiter is in her second house in Taurus. So that in and of itself is going to bring a lot of financial blessings, generally speaking, to a person. And for her specifically, her financial blessings come through this drive that she has to succeed in her career. However, in terms of transits right now, both of these places are being aspected by significant transits. You see the red Pluto symbol here, aspecting her Mars and Mercury in the 10th house. Also, her Jupiter is being aspected right now by Uranus and the North Node. So Uranus and the North Node in Taurus, they're bringing lots of shifts and changes. Uranus will kind of bring some chaos into any area of the life where it's transiting. And here it's in her second house, conjunct Jupiter. So it is bringing tumult and chaos and destruction to her financial life, to her ability to succeed financially. And yeah, so and of course this Uranus and North Node are also aspecting, Pluto and Uranus and the North Node are all aspecting these three planets, Mars, Mercury, and Jupiter. So Uranus is also bringing instability not only to her finances, but to her public image and to her ability to, succeed in her career right now. It is happening in a trine aspect though. So in a way, although I'm sure it feels pretty miserable to her right now, this could be a time of restructuring that actually is necessary, even though I'm sure that it feels quite unpleasant to her at the moment. We'll just see how it bears out. It's also important to note that she is having her Uranus opposition, still more or less in orb of her Uranus opposition. And this is a midlife crisis transit where we start to think about how we want to restructure our lives. It can be a time of reinvention. Let's see. It tends to upset the structures of our lives, even when we have a Uranus opposition on its own, not making any, aspects to our personal placements. And here for her, it's making significant aspects in her chart. But it makes us want to be unrestricted, to break through expectations imposed upon us. It brings a sort of rebellious quality to a person where we need to come to a place of living life on our own terms. So that's happening for her already. She's having her midlife crisis, and it's showing up in really significant ways for her, especially because of these aspects to her personal planets. Well, and her Jupiter, to her natal planets, we'll say. Also, there are aspects being made to her moon. Wow. Pluto, well, I didn't even talk about Pluto yet. Pluto is transiting her Mars, Mercury, and also to her moon. Pluto moving through the 10th house, it's going to bring transformation publicly. It's going to bring endings and new beginnings. It can bring rebirth. Sometimes it can be quite positive. It isn't always negative. I have a friend who had Pluto transiting through his 10th house, and it was sort of the straw that broke the camel's back. He had been working as a manager for this company. He was doing pretty well financially, but he felt very disrespected. He hated his job, basically. And I told him, like Pluto's transiting through your 10th house, there's going to be some sort of major change in your career life. But he didn't believe in astrology, so he didn't believe me, which is fine. But eventually there came a breaking point where he decided to quit his job and start his own business. And so that brought a new experience to his life, which was much more enjoyable. Right now, Snoop Dogg is having Pluto transiting through his 10th house, and he recently purchased, what was it, Death Row Records? I think so. Yeah. Yeah. So that's like a major acquisition, and Pluto can be a wealth generator as well. But it seems like with Shakira, what is happening here is that this transit it's certainly bringing attention to her reputation in terms of her wealth and how she's utilizing her wealth. Is she, not paying her taxes appropriately? Those are questions that are coming up with her. And it's also opposing her moon. So it's affecting her public life, but it's clearly affecting her personal life as well. Her moon in Cancer in the 4th house. So, and we do know, of course, that she recently separated from her ex. So some aspect of how Pluto is affecting her personal life is visible as well. But I'm sure there's a lot more to it that we're not seeing. Okay. All right, what else did I want to talk about here? Okay, also there is her progressed midheaven here in Aquarius is being transited by Saturn. So this is like a second 10th house, basically. And Saturn is transiting in here. It's been going through, actually, her natal 10th house. And now, because her progressed midheaven is over here, Saturn is transiting that progressed midheaven as well. And this just brings restrictions, limitations. It can bring just kind of negative karma. Saturn's going to bring karma for better or worse. And, sometimes with Saturn will just ask us to grow up. And so the karma feels quite negative, but this is just Saturn urging us, like, you need to take care of these issues. If you're not, doing your taxes appropriately, you need to figure that out so you can avoid problems associated with it. Let's see what else we want to look at. Her progressed Mars is also changing signs. So you can see progressed Mars right here. It's right now at 0 Pisces, and in just, I didn't look this up to see specifically, but in the next year or two, I would assume, her Mars is going to be moving into the 12th house as well. So it's a very, Pisces in the 12th house have the kind of same energy to them. So this is a Mars that, Mars in Pisces, it's a very beautiful Mars because these people, they can be very spiritual, and mystical. They can be people who are very concerned for the underdog, people who identify with the masses in a way of, understanding, I might just be one drop in the ocean, but at the same time I'm connected to the whole ocean, the ocean of existence. Like, I'm connected to everyone. I can understand my place in the world. And it's a very egoless place for Mars, but it's also a challenging place for Mars because it's difficult for Mars and Pisces to be felt. It's difficult for your actions when when Mars is in Pisces and or the 12th house, which soon it's going to be both for her progressed Mars. It's kind of difficult to get traction, It's like I'm trying to make things happen. I'm trying to make things happen, and they don't. The best analogy I can come up with is they say that if you're out in the ocean and you're stuck in a current and you're trying to swim out of that current, that really the only way to get out of it is to just stop moving. You literally have to go with the flow, and that's how you will come out of the current. The current will carry you through itself and out of itself. I've actually experienced this in real life. I'm not someone who has a lot of experiences with oceans, or like, I didn't grow up around oceans, but I was in the ocean once at Tybee Island in Georgia, and got caught in a current, and it was very scary because I was swimming and swimming and not getting anywhere. And then I remembered this thing that I had heard, that if you're stuck in a current, you have to stop and just allow the current to carry you, and it really works. But when you're in Mars and Pisces, that's the approach to life that you're going to have to take. It's a very indirect approach to life. So she's probably entering a phase where she's going to have to sort of be floating through life, or that's just, maybe it's her coping mechanism, is to float through life, or she's just being forced to allow life to carry her, right? So it's a very passive approach to life. Mars in the 12th house can also attract hidden enemies or covert attacks from others, unfortunately. And the 12th house can correlate with prison or other experiences that can remove us from the rest of society, that can sort of isolate us from other people. So isolation doesn't necessarily have to mean prison here, but it is a potential. And but I would say overall that there's something about what she's going through which will, in a sort of spiritual sense, perhaps make her feel more connected to people as a whole, but at the same time sort of remove her and isolate her from the world in a sense. And that doesn't mean that she won't still have a very public image. In fact, she has Jupiter right now transiting her ascendant. You see Jupiter here in red, and here's the little red line showing where it's at. It's really close to her ascendant. This actually is bringing lots of attention. Jupiter brings expansion, and the ascendant is our identity. So there's a lot of interest in who she is right now. There's a lot of attention being focused on her. But just because there's attention being focused on you doesn't mean that you feel included. It doesn't mean that you feel necessarily connected or seen. It just means that other people may be looking at you a lot. And even that attention might make you feel sort of isolated or separate in some sense. So that's what I feel is kind of what's going on with her in terms of her progressed Mars. And then also how the Jupiter to her ascendant is affecting that. She's also having, now this is always extremely significant. She's having a progressed new moon here. And that progressed new moon is taking place at her natal Venus. So let's see here. Yeah. So the moon, her progressed moon has separated a couple of degrees, but this progressed new moon would have happened like almost exactly on her natal Venus, which is in the 12th house already. Venus in the 12th house. People with Venus in the 12th house can often deal a lot with affairs or just secret loves. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be affairs, but it can be situations where you sort of secretly have feelings for someone, or there's a sort of romantic tie to someone, but it can't be expressed in an open way. It has to be kept hidden. You know, it could even be that it just doesn't really, it can be a sort of unrequited love as well. Those are all sorts of themes that can happen for people with Venus in the 12th house. Uh, you know, love that is sort of hidden. But she's having a new moon here. So we know that her ex was having affairs. Who knows if there's more going on to it in terms of like secretiveness. From what I read, she wanted him to wait at least a year to come public with any new relationship that he was moving into. And he didn't do that. He has been public in a new relationship. So it's the interesting thing with the 12th house is that it does hide things and create a sort of mist and hidden quality, but at the same time, there can be these spontaneous moments where the mist just clears. The same thing can happen with Neptune. It's like all of a sudden the mist clears and everything that seemed very obscured or disoriented is suddenly seen, you know? It's a strange quality with Neptune, Pisces in the 12th house that can happen sometimes. But yeah, a progressed new moon is a very significant moment in a person's life. And for her, it signals a new phase or cycle in life in relation to her significant relationships. But also Venus has to do with our money. So this is an extremely new phase of life. And so, you know, what does that hold? You know, only time will tell, but it does show that she is really embarking on an entirely new phase of life. And a progressed new moon in a person's chart, even when it's not conjuncting a personal planet, will always symbolize that. Like, this is a new phase of your life. Because a progressed, either a new moon or full moon, is only about every 14 years. So every 14 years, you would have either a progressed new moon or full moon, and it's 28 years to go from one new moon to the next progressed new moon. So it's a very long cycle. And here hers, like I said, is connecting up to her natal Venus, so it's much more significant of a new cycle for her. Mercury is also involved. So it's just really affecting, you know, the people in her life. And a lot of this is happening sort of secretively because of the 12th house influence. But it's happening close enough to her ascendant that even though there are like secretive things involved, it is still like forming a visible aspect of her identity. Okay, let me see. Oh, we also have transiting Neptune that's really going to be reinforcing this. You see transiting Neptune here in red, which is at 24 degrees of Pisces right now. Her progressed sun is at 29 degrees of Pisces. So over the next several years, Neptune is going to get closer and closer to this natal Venus. So the themes of, you know, illusions, deceptions, things like affairs or hidden relationships or hidden feelings, hidden attractions, or any and all of that also connected to her finances are going to just be strong influences. This is not just a momentary thing. This is going to be a very prolonged emphasis on these aspects of her life. And also, this is interesting that she has her progressed Venus is approaching her natal Chiron. And so this can really highlight relationship wounds for a person, and because it's happening in her first house, make those relationship wounds become sort of an aspect of a person's identity. So the person's very identity becomes associated with this sort of theme of relationship wounds, also financial wounds with Venus. And when Venus is aspecting Chiron, there's also a real emphasis on a kind of natural and unrefined beauty or aesthetic. And I think it's interesting, and I'll try to put a picture up of this, of something that went viral. It was a picture of Shakira with her sons and the aftermath of all of this, public drama with her ex and all of this, where she's looking very, her hair is very frizzy. It doesn't look like she's wearing makeup. She's just looking very different aesthetically. It is a very natural look. Now, to me, I feel like she still looks incredibly beautiful, but it's a very different kind of beauty. And Venus has to do with our beauty and aesthetic as well, especially when it's moving through the first house, which is the initial impressions we make, our physical looks, and all of that, our identity. So I wonder if this is going to be, a new phase in her life as well, just in terms of how she presents herself physically, how she, decides aesthetically to present herself. I know, so it's just something interesting to see how that plays out. And then we'll leave on kind of one of the more sour notes, but also something that symbolically is very prominent, and that is the fact that her progressed ascendant, let's see here, right here in blue, is directly at 26 degrees Taurus conjunct the fixed star Algol, or Caput Algol, which is a very unfortunate, it's a very unfortunate fixed star, sometimes called the demon star. Some people equate it with evil, but just in terms of the archetype of it, it brings misfortune. It's a very unfortunate fixed star. Johnny Depp was also having, when I looked at his chart, significant transits to Algol as well, as he's been going through his defamation trial and all of that. So our progressed ascendant is just like, again, our image, how we, kind of like how our image sort of enters the world. It's like the front door to who we are and how we're seen as a person. The 10th house and the midheaven are a little bit more about our like public reputation and career. But both of them have to do with kind of like our image, and the first house specifically kind of with our identity. But yeah, it's basically just bringing a lot of negative associations to who she is as a person. All right, so yeah, that's what I see going on with Shakira's astrology. If there are other things that you see that you would like to point out, or any other comments or suggestions maybe for other people that I might do astrology readings on, you can leave those in the comments. Check out my Patreon if you're interested in supporting me and the astrology that I am doing. And I want to thank you so much for watching, and see you later. Bye-bye.